Alright, so let me teach you a quick math trick, basically. It's a trick to memorize all the trigonometric shifts. So you see these, plus a lot more. So let's see. So pi over 2 minus x, pi over 2 plus x, pi plus x, pi minus x, 2 pi over 2 minus x, 2 pi over 2 plus x. So you should know why or what they give you, such as, let's see, the sine of pi over 2 plus x gives you the gives you cos x, right? And you should know why this happens, but if you don't have the time, or if you already know why it happens but you're just having trouble memorizing it, here's a quick tip, and this is very effective. So okay, let me draw a unit circle. Actually no, okay, hang on. Alright, not shabby. So okay, so here you have either 0 or 2 pi. Here you have pi over 2. Here you have pi and 3 pi over 2. Okay, so here's the trick to memorize. So first, look at your question. So you need to think, is it a fraction? Right? Is it a fraction? And then you have to consider. It's easier to show you. So let me show you. Say you had cosine of pi over 2 minus x, right? So pi over 2 is here. Sorry, I wanted to make that plus x. So pi over 2 is here, and plus x would be plus a little bit. So let's just say over here somewhere. Now, if you draw a triangle, right? That's a pretty bad triangle, but whatever. If you draw a triangle, cosine and sine are positive this way. So cosine is positive here, sine is positive here. Sine is positive here because it's still above the x-axis, but cosine is not positive because it's on the left side of the origin, and cosine is the x value. So you see that cosine of anything in this quadrant, quadrant 2, anything in quadrant 2 would be negative. But yeah, you could go ahead and derive it with the triangles, and that'll take too long. But you should know that cosine of pi over 2 minus plus x is simply negative sine x. Okay, but there are a lot of these, right? So how do you memorize it? Okay, this is all you do. You look at if it's a cosine, sine, tangent. No, you just look at if it's cosine and sine, because tangent, cotangent, cosecant, secant could be derived from cosine and sine. So you notice that it's cosine, and then you notice that it's pi over 2 plus x. So you realize that it'll be this much over, and then so you say, okay, is cosine in that quadrant negative or positive? Oh, it's negative. Alright, so since I have a fraction, I just take the cofunction of it, aka I just take the opposite. So if I have cosine, I just take sine. If I had sine pi over 2 plus x, I would see, okay, what is sine in the second quadrant? Well, it's still above the x-axis, so sine is positive. And then, since I have a fraction, I just take the cofunction of it. So I just go cosine of x, and you could do this for all of them. So let's see. Let's choose 2 pi minus x. So actually, let's do 3 pi over 2 plus x. I'll show you the trick with when there is no fraction. So let's see. Sine. Alright, and yeah, I'll show that later. Sine of 3 pi over 2 plus x, I said. Okay, so you just see sine, right? What is sine? And that's going to be somewhere over here, right? So what's sine in the fourth quadrant? Well, it's below the x-axis, so sine is going to be negative. Okay, that's great. Now you have a fraction here, right? 3 pi over 2. So that tells you that it's going to be the cofunction of sine. So since it's going to be negative, it's just going to be negative cos x. And yeah, that's for the fractions. Now let me show you how to do it if there is no fraction. Okay, so let me just insert a little bit of space here. Okay, so yeah, I still have that, you know. Alright, so let's see. Let's say they give you sine of 2 pi minus x, okay? Yeah, so you don't even need to memorize this now with this trick, nor do you need to derive it, because, okay, you look, sine, right, and then you have 2 pi minus x, well 2 pi is right here, and then minus x would be 2 pi, since you're going this way, minus that would be a little bit this way, so 2 pi minus x would be like somewhere over there. Now you see, okay, this is the fourth quadrant, so sine in the fourth quadrant is negative because it's under the x-axis, and since this is not a fraction, you take the function itself, you don't take the cofunction. So this would just be sine, actually let me reset it, this would be negative sine x because sine in the fourth quadrant is negative. Similarly, cos of 2 pi minus x, well, cos is cos of 2 pi minus x is here, but it lies on the right side of the origin, so that would mean it's positive. Now you don't have a fraction, so you don't need to take the cofunction of it, so you just do cosine of x. This would work too if you had, let's say, cosine of 2 pi minus 9x, right? You just take this would just be the same thing as this, except it would be cosine of 9x. It's that simple. Okay, and let me show you why this is helpful and it comes in handy. Let me give you a trig identity. Hang on, let me think of something. Okay. Alright, so let's see. So a simple one. Here is okay, we have sine of 3 pi over 2 minus x equals to cosine of let's see, pi minus 2x. Okay, how do you say if these are equal? Okay, so let's see, sine of 3 pi over 2 minus x. Let me draw. Well, you don't need to do this every time. I'm just doing this because I am teaching it. You could do it in your head. I'm sure you can. Okay, there's 3 pi over 2 minus x a little bit, right? So sine there is negative. So, and this is a fraction. So negative cos, and then oh, this should be 2 right here. Negative cos 2x. Okay, that's the left side. Now the right side. Well, cosine of pi minus 2x. So you got pi, and then you just do minus 2x, so it goes minus that way. So cos minus pi minus 2x. Cosine in this quadrant 2 is negative, and since you don't have a fraction, you take the function, so you don't take the opposite of it, you just take what it is. So this would just be cosine, and since it's negative, so you just take negative cosine 2x, and look at that, they're equal. If you did not know this, trick, or if you did not have all of them memorized, how would you go about this? Well, you'd use the double angle formula. You'd say, okay, let's break this down. So that'll be sine pi over 2 3 pi over 2 cos 2x minus yeah, you get the idea, right? And it would take a long time, whereas with this, you just know what it is, and there you go. Easy way to memorize all these. And I didn't show a tangent of any of them, or cotangent, because all tangent is really, say you wanted to find, actually let's go down, say you wanted to find the tangent of this, you say, okay, what's the sine of this, what's the cosine of this, and then you just put the sine over the cosine, and then whatever value you'd have. Here, let me just show you. Let me show you with an example. Okay, let's do tan. Let's do tan of 2 pi minus x. Alright, so first let's do the sine of 2 pi minus x. And remember the trick. 2 pi sine of 2 pi minus x, well, it's in the fourth quadrant, so it would be negative sine x. Alright, now let's do the cosine of 2 pi minus x. It'll just be cos x. And then tangent is sine over cosine. So, okay, that's crap. Alright, sine. So this would just be negative sine x over cos x, and that would just give you a negative tan x. Right? And you don't need to write all of it down. You could just look at it. You could say, well, tan was sine over cosine. Sine of this is negative sine because it's not a fraction. Cosine of this is positive cosine because it's not a fraction, so you just take whatever function it is, you don't take the cofunction. Alright, cool. So negative sine x over cos x, doesn't matter what it is, it's a negative over a positive. That gives me a negative, and I know it's going to be tan x, so there you go, tan x. What else? Let's see. If you had another tangent example, basically. If you had tan of let's see, pi over 2 minus x, this would be the cotangent of x. Why? Let me show you. Tangent of pi over 2 minus x. Alright, so you have sine of pi over 2 minus x, which is plus sine x over over cosine of x. So yeah, this gives you a sine, but then you have to think that, oh yeah, this is a fraction. So instead of taking the tan of x, you just take the cotangent of x. And let's go check that. I think they have it here. Sorry. No, I don't think they have that. That's cool. It's one of them. So that means that tan of pi over 2 minus x is cotangent of x. Okay, so that's all there is to it. It's really not that hard. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.